Right, so we're turning to tazria. Periyud Gimel Pasuk Aleph. Chapter 13, Pasuk Aleph. Vayidava Hashem el Moshe ve'el Aaron leimer. Adam ki yeh be'er b'sorei se'eis lo'isapachas lo'ivaheres. V'hoya be'er b'sorei leneget tzoras v'huva el Aaron hakohen oy el achad mibonav hakohanim. V'roh hakohen is hanega v'chura, and then the kohen is mispoinen in all the different protei hanega, and either he paskins that the nega is tomei, or he paskins that it's toya, or he has to have what we call skira, hezger, as it's called, for a certain period of time, v'chulu. So ask yourself the shaila immediately. The attentive reader is attracted by the word Adam. Also, notice that this dibur on the Be'er is not openly dependent or openly delivered to the whole of Bnei Yisrael. It's delivered to Moshe ve'Aaron. And then, on that basis, all the details are given only as a word to Moshe ve'Aaron. So we could suggest is moving, which are the fact that the whole tipul, the whole taking care of these negoim, of these appearances in the skin and in the different parts of the body, and later we'll see even in begodim and batim, then they all have to be decided anyway by the kohen. So therefore the Ikar Dibur was only to Moshe, that he should give over to Aaron, because the Ikar was dependent on Aaron Ubono, as we see. However, it's of interest that it was given in that way, not Daber or Bnei Yisrael, tell over to the Yidden Kafakah. No, it remained only between Moshe, the Eibush, and Moshe V'Aaron. And then we see Adam, the word Adam, ki yeh be'er b'sorei se'eis lo'isapachas v'chulu. So we already been informed on numerous occasions that the word Adam is the Shem HaMayla. It's the, how do you call it, the elevated name for a mensch. There are four names for a mensch: Adam, Ish, Gever, and Enosh. Those are the four general words that occur in the Lashon HaTorah for mention, how do you call for man, and Adam is the highest one. And Adam is indicative of the shleimus of the human species, because the word Adam is gematria ma. It's how they call it, numerical value is 45, and that's indicative of the Shem Ma Lamaila, which is the milui of the Shem Havaya. It's the filling up of the Abish's name with Alephin Davke. And the Aleph is indicative of very high madrega, and it's brought down in the Drushim of the previous section in Siddur, beneged to the bris milah, to the circumcision on the 8th day, which occurs in the previous section here. That's from a very, very high madrega. There are two madregas in the Shem Ma, and when I get to the milah, it's from the Shem Ma, how it's shurish is in Ak, with that Adam Kadmon, but that's the first madrega after the Tzimtzum. That's a very high madrega, Bakit. And therefore, Adam is it's put down in a famous pasuk that the Melech HaRosh Sancherev, he used the expression about himself, or Nebuchadnezzar was Domani was Sancherev, that he said about himself that he's Adameh le'elyon, I will compare myself to the Eibishter, in his rishos and in his big time, is he said he'll compare himself to the Eibishter. The Shloah Kodesh brings down that the word Adam is based on that expression be'emes, that a yid mitzad the nefesh alakis, even mitzad gufay, is adameh le'elyon. He can be compared to Elokus, he can be compared to the Eibishter, and therefore he's called Adam. That's the name Adam. But the name Adam is the perfection of the human species. And then we see that there's mitsora inyonim which are called neged shoras. But the inyan from shoras is indicatory of a very low madrega. Yeah, where a person, due to certain chisreinas, by him in ruchnigas, and Rashi tells us in 2 places or even 3, in the Hemshech of Pasha Tazria and Pasha Mitsora, that the Ikar Negoim come mitzad Loshen Hora, mitzad the usage, the improper usage of the power of speech on the part of the mensch, as Rashi says in footage. On the 3 occasions that the Indian, and then he also says in Pasha Mitsora that's got to do with gaiva, how do you call it, conceit, but how do you say gaiva, holding of the self, or pride in the self. Mamish two Rashis, one alongside the other in Pasha Mitsora. But in one Dibur Rashi says it comes from Mitzad Loshen Hora, the Indian from the Tzoras, and in the next one immediately after it comes from Mitzad the Indian from gaiva. But this shir is not about that. But it just so happens that happens to be the case. So Alpha P, what that itself needs a bit of a issue. Why does Rashi say 2 reasons, one after the other? Well, we see that the Ikar at the Negoim comes mitzad Loshen Hora. But that's the incorrect usage of the Koyach HaDibur. What that leads to all sorts of inyonim in the Gufa Odom, which eventually mean that he has to be michutz lamachaneh, he has to be sent outside the machaneh, and as Rashi brings down, in chutz mikol gimel hamachaneh, he has to be sent out of even the machaneh Yisrael, he has to be outside altogether. There's one known as a machaneh Yisrael, a machaneh Leviah, and the machaneh Shechino. So we won't go into all the details of the arrangement of those different machanes, but the material has to be sent out Megimel, or the whole 3, which indicates l'chora a very low madrega. So ask yourself the shaila, how do we come to call the whole parsha al shem Odom ki yiyeh? But Odom is the shleimus Odom minha Odom. We come to all of these dinim dafki in his madrega. Now also we find that the beginning of Sefer Vayikra, the whole Sefer Vayikra begins with the Pasha the Korbanos, and immediately after a short introduction, it also begins all the dinim of the Korbanos with the word Odom. Odom ki yakriv mikem korban laHashem. So also as itself the Shalom, the majority of the Korbanos, al Korbanim chelik godel mihem. They come mitzad chisreinas in the Odom, because he was nikshal, b'derech klav in inyonim from shoigeg, unwitting sins, or he was nikshal occasionally even in inyonim from osham. Lamasha can be bought even on a deliberate sin. Certain dinim in the Ashonis have got to do even with deliberate sin, and even the korban ha'oila, which is the first one in Sefer Vayikra. The complete korban which goes into the fire entirely, and only the skin is divided up amongst the kohanim, that's mentioned with the word Odom. So we see that even there, by the korban oila, there's also a certain chisoron on the part of the mensch which obliges that he bring a korban oila. Either it's got to do with a mitzvah asay, that he was mavatla mitzvahs asay, or it can be other inyanim which can eventually oblige you to bring a korban oila. So we see that even Akom Oila seems to be connected somehow or another with things which are not, the most perfect stages in the mensch or in Al-Haponim, in what happened to him. Maybe over noon, I think it's a bit hot in there. No? Let's see. The face is always showing the signs of the fact that it's hot. There's, or maybe mitsora in yon. This Al-Haponim is the word Odom at the beginning of the ganze Sefer Vayikra is also of interest. Why should it begin Dafki, and why should all the Korbanos be connected Dafki with the word Odom? And we'll see later on, we're going to mention a portion in L'Chutei Torah from the Alter Rebbe, where it becomes even more surprising, more wondrous, the whole inyan, that it would appear that even Moshe Rabbeinu didn't hold by the Madrega for an Odom, the Shleimusei. Therefore, Moshe Rabbeinu is referred to as Ish. Moshe is referred to as Ish Elokim, or Ish Elokim. V'ho Ish Moshe. When the Yidden spoke about Moshe Rabbeinu, they said they haven't seen him. All this time he's been up on the mountain, so they said, V'ho Ish Moshe. It would appear, that the second Madrega, which is Ish, Moshe Rabbeinu reached that Madrega, but there's a certain implication that maybe certain inyanim in the Madrega von Odom were even withheld from Moshe Rabbeinu, which that's even magdil the kasha even more with a tremendous studium. How can you possibly begin in a goyim with the word Odom, with all these whatever you call them, all these signs in the goof of the Odom with the word Odom? The what we find also beneged to the previous din, which has got to do with the birth of male, the birth of Yiddish children, and the union of the Mila, which are also connected, as we said, with very high madregas, and according to their high makodesh, they're also maramas. There's a tremendous arichas in the Erachim Kodesh, how all these inyonim are maramas of the inyan of the Gula Shlema and the coming of Moshiach. We'll see more about that briefly upon him as we go along. So I was told to Shaila, how can all these inyonim, how are they maramas of the inyan of the Geula when they have certain inyonim of Tumah connected with them, etc. So, in order to understand that, we have to refer to the fact that yesterday was Kof Ches Nisan, and today is a Hemshech from Kof Ches Nisan. Today is Kof Tes Nisan, which is Erev Rosh Chodesh Iyar, and Kof Ches Nisan, Koyach Nisan. But that was the day. Maybe some of you managed to get to the big kinnis that there was here at Chabad last night. There was a kinnis, clearly to mark the famous Sikha, the Rebbe, what he said in Kof Ches Nisan Toshin Nun Aleph. And just very briefly, in that famous Sikha, the Rebbe turned to the Hasidim and to the whole world with a statement that, notwithstanding all the efforts that he put into the union of bringing Moshiach B'Poel Mamish, he hadn't been Kaviochel. And I use the word Kaviochel. He hadn't been Matzliach Kaviochel, as it were, Ad Az. Therefore, the Rebbe hinted that maybe it had been like a working on his own mitzido, it had been his efforts. Therefore, he wanted to pass over the whole responsibility, make it a collective, individual responsibility on the part of all people, particularly the Hasidim, that each person should see himself as responsible personally for bringing the Gula Shlema, for bringing Mashiach B'Poel Mamish. And then the Rebbe used the expression, the famous Lashon, that if there were 10 people, meaning that they were misakesh, because they would be obstinate with Hashem, and they would say, listen here, we are obstinate, we're misakshim, that you have to bring the Geula, then for sure, if they did it with the right sincerity, then the Abza would for sure send the Geula. And the Rebbe hinted to a famous, there's a mimer from the Alter Rebbe in what they call the Mamorim HaKtsorim, the brief Maimonim what the Alter Rebbe said when he first took over the leadership. Or the Alter Rebbe has a whole thick saver, but this thick of these so-called Maimonim Kitzorim is short Maimonim. There's a famous statement in one of them where the Alter Rebbe said that if one tzaddik, if there was tzaddik echad, and he were to mamish be doirish the geula, and had he could also be oimed al teikav the then the geula would come. And it would only need one tzaddik. The Rebbe said the Chol need a million of obstinate people, that's like tzaddikim. He said if it was a tzaddik echad, then the geula would come miyad. They stated in the mind from the Alter Rebbe. So I said the Shaila, who's this tzaddik echad? Who is he? So the Rebbe mentioned that briefly, I think, also upon in the Horace report. And the Rebbe said that if 10 people were to really stand on the Union with the akshonas, had it called obstinacy, then Mashiach would come, without any doubt. So the Shaila, who are these obstinate? What does it mean? Genuine obstinacy. So I don't doubt. For some reason, I didn't make it to the Kenneth last night because I already did my bit in Sfas the night before. I had a whole guys came in and surprised me when I wasn't feeling particularly up to it. I said I was about Kochi. I was involved in quite a big fabring over there in Sfas, but I gave to Koch Chesnis. So by the time I got down to this part of the world, I already was not ready for another big Kenneth. I mean, I was ready, but I wasn't physically. Akli, whatever. We see that the Rebbe turned at the end of the Sikha to everybody, and he said that Ta'asu ki yachol techem. Listen, you guys, everybody has to do according to his ability, and bring to us Mashiach b'poel mamish.
Why wasn't the Rebbe himself that one tzaddik that he spoke about? Why the Rebbe himself couldn't have been the one tzaddik, or could be the one? Why he himself wasn't? He spoke about one tzaddik.
I have the same shaila. I have the same shaila. I don't have an open answer to that. All we could say is that Aleph, we could say that the Rebbe just said that out of Anova. He didn't do it. And Beis, he wanted that we should all have part in it. That was the Nakuda, that everybody should take part. Everybody should feel an achayus, ishiyus, a personal responsibility. It's like the old cloud that we find in Chabad. It's the difference between what the Rebbe said in the famous Sikha Yud Shvat when he took over the Natir, that his Indian is only kaviyol to help. That's what all the Rebbeim said over the years in different ways. That in Lubavitch it wasn't just a Rebbe and everybody was sort of went along, after the Rebbe or with him, but each person has to be a koyach, musuyam, and he has to use all of his koyach with tachas hashleim. The Rebbe is like the unbelievable plow, which is koyach kol, ha-koyach shkula. Well, that's a slightly different shaila, but einachanami, sof, the question is a question. And that makes the whole union of Kochesness and wondrous to the extreme. The fact that the Rebbe turned in that way to the Hasidim. However, the Nakuda is that we see that there are one or 2 points in that Sikha. But the Ikar was Havor Sakiyula B'Poel Mamish, should Mamish be B'Poel and active in the Metzias of the world B'Poel Mamish. Aleph, and Beis, that there was this Indian of Ta'asu ki yachol techem, that everybody had to see that he bring out all the powers that he can to add and to increase the speed of these scholars of Melech HaMashiach take of me out. And in an even from Yechilas, Ta'asu ki yachol techem, what if a person thinks what he could do, when you're misbeinen at every oizen, from Melech HaMashiach is tremendously meduyak. The word yechol techem is also very meduyak, because when you think carefully what you could really do, it's unlimited. What you do, b'poel, is because of what you are and your problems. Or what you could do is almost unlimited. I mean, at least within certain limited, unlimited realms, even despite certain limitations that no doubt exist, it's almost unlimited what a mensch could do mitzad the koyach ha-yechoilas. And there was brought down and says that the koyach, what we call yechoilas, is mitzad the etzem of the neshama, and it's linked to the etzem and neshama. So if you really got cracking with your etzem and neshama, to bring the geula, then things would look different. However, in order to sort of be mavaya that whole thing a little bit in the way of a shir that has to do with this type of shir we have on Thursday nights, we'll start with the famous Ma'aser what in the year Toshin Lamatayim, when the Rebbe printed for the first time the iron base. It's interesting. And then the Rebbe demanded that each individual give a dollar or a shekel or whatever it was, matpeya shebemedidosei, towards no more. The Rebbe, people offered more, the Rebbe sent it back. He said he only wanted from each person, each statfers, according to the shekel sheboisa medina. Anyway, when the Rebbe printed the iron base, what that was connected with a tremendous shkurim that the Rebbe made about that. But that's a separate issue. It's not the place to become involved in that whole issue, because it also had certain hemshechim which aroused the eyebrows up. We're not going to go into that right at the moment. But in connection with that, the Rebbe told a story. And so since then it's become a famous story. It could be it was famous before that, but not everybody was so familiar with it. That in the year Tov Reish Ches, but that was during the leadership of the Rebbe Tzedek, that was during the Messias. And the Rebbe Marash, who was his youngest son, at that time was Kaviocho, still young, at least in years. It's well known, you can't say about the Rebbeim that they were boys. Because you know the famous story of both the Alter Rebbe and the Rebbe Rashab, that they said about themselves that they were never boys. I already told you the Ma'aser. Anyway, we can't go into all the Ma'asers. So, the Rebbe Marash was once, right near the end of this year. Now, it had been written in certain great Sforim and certain calculations that year was going to be a Kate. It was going to be a year for the Gilui of Mashiach. So the Rebbe Marash, with his question, he waited right till the end. He waited until it was close to the end of Elul. It was going to right near the end of this year. And he said, he met up with his father, the Rebbe Tzedek, in a private interview. And he said to him, Tate, the whole year is almost gone by, and where's Mashiach? So the Rebbe Tzedek said to him, look here. He said, this year, and that happens to be historically the case, that we printed the Likutei Torah. We brought out the Likutei Torah, and was printed, including the Hagoyas from the Rebbe Tzedek. It's going on the whole business where the Rebbe Tzedek was going to include these Hagoyas, or he wasn't. And the Alter Rebbe wanted very much that he should do it, etc., etc. So we printed the Alter Rebbe, we printed the Likutei Torah, and also with the Hagoyas and with everything. So he says that Kashiafutzu, Maya Noisach Chutza, Ka'asima, then that's a sign that Mashiach is coming over. That's Kilo as if Mashiach came. Printed the Likutei Torah. So the Rebbe Marash said, "Sehr good, Tata." He said, that is very good. He said, "Ober midaf hoben, ober bepoel mamish." The Rebbe Marash said to his father, "That's very good what you say, Tata." He said, "But we need bepoel mamish. We need to have the Mashiach bepoel mamish." So the Rebbe was very, how do you call it? Mislayev and Gaddafi Bekedish by the bringing in that Ma'aser. So I sought the Shaila on the part of the alternative reader. What was the difference between the Rebbe Tzedek and the Rebbe Marash? What was that? I mean, both of them are Nesiei Chabad. Both of them are B'chinas Mashiach Shebedeiron, as the Rebbe said. On many occasions, all the Rebbeim begins Mashiach Shebetero, is why is it that Rebbe Tzemach Tzedek answered one way, and he said, oh, that's, Ki'ilu, but it's only a Ki'ilu, Sokos, of however we learn it, it's still only, Ki'ilu, and the Rebbe Mara said, that's very fine, and what we need, Bepil, Mama. But my commiffligate, what's the difference of opinion? Around what is swiveling the Nakuda? Now, in order to thicken the plot, to thicken the pudding, is we come down a couple, 2 or 3 generations after that. We come all the way down to Crown Heights in the year Toshim Mem Beit. And what in that year, that's when the children were sitting by the road. I think it was Simchas Torah or Shabbos Bereisis, or I know exactly when it was, or one of the Shabboses, after Shabbos Bereisis. But there was a group of children sitting near the Rebbe. As well known, the Rebbe used to let children sit near his table, and I think one of them used to play with the Rebbe's shoelaces. Upon him, these children were sitting near the table, and they came up with the hachroza, we want Moshiach now. And the Rebbe was tremendously taken by that. The Rebbe gave a tremendous backing to the expression, we want Moshiach now, in English. So that it spread quickly, and it became like a Margile Bufumayu de Briois, how do you say, like, a thing that people said and repeated regularly all around Crown Heights, we want Moshiach now. Not only, of course, in other parts of the world as well, particularly where the English language happens to be the Matbeya. Hayete says everybody was saying, we want Moshiach now. So, about a week after that, or a few days after that, I have a person I know well, he was almost like a Talmud of mine, that he happened to be standing Shabbos in the morning, the Shabbos after all this happened, or a week after, which came out on a Shabbos. He was standing near the door of 770, early in the morning Shabbos. Let's say between 7:30 and 8 approximately, that's when I understand what it was. And he was standing in the main door, front door, and he was saying something. He was saying Tehillim, or he was learning a Shir Tanya. He was looking in Sefer, and all of a sudden, Vayisha Eino Vayar, he lifts up his eyes, and he sees the Rebbe is coming up the steps in the 770. You know, the Rebbe used to come Shabbos morning relatively quietly, because everybody is inside, everybody's busy. I said, well, not everybody saw the Rebbe coming down Eastern Parkway from the direction of Brooklyn Avenue or whatever it is there. So the Rebbe coming down and turns into 770, and all of a sudden he sees the Rebbe is coming up those steps. He's completely dumbfounded. So he somehow or another something told him, and he jumped over to the door. And at the last minute, he managed to get the door open before the Rebbe came, because the Rebbe didn't wait for him. And of course, if he had pulled the door open, another few seconds later, he would have hit the Rebbe with the door. That's what So therefore, he had to get very quickly, and he opened the door, and the Rebbe stepped out. And the Rebbe looked at him, and the Rebbe said, Adank. But that was very common, the Rebbe's way. The Rebbe would say thank you for any small service like that. It was done. So the Rebbe looked at him and said in Yiddish, Adank. So all of a sudden he had a moment, and he said to the Rebbe, we want Moshiach now. In English. So all of a sudden the Rebbe's face became very serious. The Rebbe looked at him, and the Rebbe sort of stared him in the eye. He was thunderstruck, absolutely. And the Rebbe said, Ich mein aber b'poel mamish. So the Rebbe said, I mean b'poel mamish. In other words, don't Don't make me a slogan. Don't bring this into a slogan. We want Moshiach now, but we want Moshiach now. So, I mean, B'Peil Mamish. And that's it. He was thunderstruck on the spot. That's holding the door, strode into 770. So now isn't that an amazing, how do you call it, Dimoyen ha'inyonim, that here the Rebbe used exactly the same expression as Rebbe Marash. And the Rebbe said, I don't mean any other way, but I mean it. We want Moshiach now means the Peil Mamish. Absolutely, as he said, what the Rebbe Marash. So I asked the Shadow, what is the Nakuda here? What does it mean? People who were saying we want Moshiach, they didn't mean B'Peil Mamish. What is the Nakuda? And that's what the Rebbe said in the Sikha almost 10 years later, Koches Nisan, that it has to be B'Peil Mamish. And the Akshonis has to be that Moshiach should be B'Peil Mamish. So we should, and what did the Rebbe the Tzemach Tzedek mean when he said that the printing of the Lekut etc. That was killed? What's the difference? B'ma kilu komiflaga. I remember with the mito, well, maybe we ought to have some touch to these questions we asked at the beginning. And we could say like this. When I was in Meron, what's today? Thursday. I was in Meron on Tuesday afternoon. I happened to, my sharp eye was caught. I happened to walk past a wall in Meron there inside with all these different sections there. You go here, you go there, with millions of different shuls and everything inside there. All of a sudden I saw there was a big notice up there that Rosh Chodesh Iyar, Aleph Iyar, is the Yortzeit of Reb Mendel Vitebsk. Reb Mendel Orodok. Now I must admit I didn't know that. I probably heard it one time in my life, but I didn't know that was the case. Is that the Yortzeit of Reb Mendel Vitebsk is Aleph Iyar, which is Sunday. And they're going to have some big thing over there and everything. And when I came back down to Bnei Brak, and I went yesterday morning to the mikveh. No, yesterday I went to the mikveh. No, this morning. When I went to the mikveh, I noticed there's even bigger signs. And Bnei Brak is more, sort of posh. In Bnei Brak, there's big signs that there's going to be some big thing. Aleph Iyar, the outside of Mendel Vitebsk. Now, it's well known that Mendel Vitebsk, he was the Mamale Mokim, as it were, from the Mezuche Magid, immediately after the status of the Magid. And the Alter Rebbe saw in Reb Mendel Vitebsk his Rebbe. He saw that he called him Rabbi. And the Alter Rebbe went to him like a chassid, in those days they didn't use the word chassid. The Alter Rebbe went to him like a Talmud. And then all of a sudden, everybody knows that Reb Mendel Vitebsk said he's going to Eretz Yisrael. Everyone knows the famous story. He came over here to Eretz Yisrael with 300 followers, 300 people. In other words, a lot of Talmidim from the Magid and Talmidei Hem and their families. And they all came over here to Eretz Yisrael, and there was no Parnasa here in Eretz Yisrael whatsoever. As is well known, the Matzav here was just terrible in those days. And anyway, that's a whole big long story. And the Alter Rebbe went with him to a certain point, thinking that he was also going to go. And then he said to the Alter Rebbe, no, you have to stay here. And he used his influence to get the Alter Rebbe into the city of Liozne. And the Alter Rebbe became what they call a Magid in Liozne and the whole thing. And the Alter Rebbe had to stay. And he wouldn't let the Alter Rebbe go at all. But he went to Eretz Yisrael. And we see that they settled in the beginning in Tzfas, and then after, oddly enough, there was Misnagdim at those times in Tzfas, oddly enough. and they had a lot of difficulties in Tzfas, and they went over to Tveria, and there was a lot of big Sfadische, Mukubolim, and other people in Tveria. What they received, the Rebbe Vitebsk, with great enthusiasm, knowing that he was a Ish of Pnimis HaTorah, etc., etc., and he settled there in Tveria. And that's where he was installing at a very early age. Rebbe Vitebsk, Sachakol, lived about 49 years. Maximum he was 50 when he was installing from the world. So, the Pa'ula of Rebbe Vitebsk here in Eretz Yisrael, nobody knows what it was all about. They never, from the moment they arrived, they had nothing to eat. They didn't prepare all the groundwork before they came for years. Make sure there would be this one waiting for that one. Nothing. Just all came in, got off the ships, walked onto the shores of Eretz Yisrael, Shalom Aleichem. And immediately they started writing letters to all the people in Chutzpah, please send us money. And that was the whole reason with the Alter Rebbe sending money to Eretz Yisrael. And that's what got him into all the trouble with the guys with Yutis Kislev, with the Tzaricha, Sa'inim. What is it doing? So Yesh Lema, that there was a whole in the Gilui, the Pnimis HaTorah, through the Baal Shem Tov. But even though the original vision of the Baal Shem Tov was seen in Gan Eden Ha'elyon L'mayla, that was with Mashiach, and he said that your futzum mayan itself, when there'll be the mayonis of Pnimis HaTorah, Mamela Ka'osima, there'll be the Gilui of Melech HaMashiach. But it appears that that Gufa had to go in certain, what you might call, developments, a certain shlavim. And all of them were a hachana for what the Rebbe said, Poel Mavis, and what the Rebbe Marash began a whole new system, which is called the Inyan of Poel Mavis. It's not a new system, but it's a change, how do you call it, a shift into the high and final gear. And therefore we could say that the Baal Shem Tov prepared the Inyan for the whole Klal Yisrael, including the Poshti Eden, that they should have a shaykhs to that Inyan in Torah, which would eventually poil and be yored lamata into the Inyan of Poel Mamish. We'll soon see in a second about that. And then the Alter Rebbe, the Magid, and the Alter Rebbe, and the Mittler Rebbe, and the Rebbe, the Tzom Tzedek, took that over. And the Rebbe Vitebsk, he's a very fascinating thing. Like in the middle, what his Inyan is to bring it into Eretz HaKodesh Davke. And Davke to bring this whole Inyan Ruchni. At that time it was pure Ruchnis. They had absolutely no shaykhs with Gashmias. They couldn't live. They had nothing to live from. And the whole time there was this terrible battle to keep them all alive. Here in Eretz Yisrael. He said, Mela, what was the Inyan? The Inyan was to bring down at least the beginning of the Yizgalas into the Metzias and the Avir Ha'olam of Eretz Yisrael. And therefore, I would suggest that the reason why we're all sitting here today, even though there's millions of Arabs who would just for any second of money just overrun this place, and they're prepared to do it, and they've got everything with which they could do it, and the Yidden are anxious to help them to do it. I mean, the Yidden, so-called, I mean, these peoples, that are so-called, the government, and so on. It's like, call them the government. I mean, it's interesting, the word that they use for the government is memshala. And in Siddur it's written that the word memshala means by compulsion. And malucha means talking with will. And they've always used the word memshala. It's always been their word ever since they began. These colonies that they call themselves. So anyway, they're called the memshala, which means that they're just ruling Baal Korach over the Nefesh Shalakis of the Yidden. Anyway, however it should be, they're just openly longing to pass it into the hands of the Arabs. And the most amazing thing is that people are not aware of it. You guys sit in the yeshiva in Kwachabad, where you go away home for Pesach and you're busy with the cleaning of Pesach or something. You dray around someplace in a Beit Chabad or something, and you come back. Do you realize that when they gave back Gush Katif, that every day almost these guys shoot rockets? almost every day. And nobody hears about it because they don't do anything. They fall all over the place, but they never really do anything. I mean, this has been happening for months. And people don't talk about it because it's just become sort of like everyday news that these rockets fall all over the place, but they very, very rarely do any damage. They hit some bold building in Ashdod a couple of weeks ago, near Ashdod. So that got into the news, they blew up this building, but it also never harmed anybody. And that's been going on ever since they gave them back. So, I mean, these Rishoyim are very interested in keeping it quiet anyway, because they don't want people to know what the so-called peace involves. You understand? But that's what it involves. Oh, but there's these unbelievable miracles that nothing happens. It's unbelievable. So I mean, in whose is all this happening? Yeah, in the schools, the fact that they've got a few cannons over there, they don't use them anymore, or they got more planes or something, but they don't use them anymore. Yeah. In that schools, it's happening. It's happening in the schools of Melech HaMashiach, but Yesh Loima, the beginning of the Hachonah from that, was Rebbe Mendel Vitebske. He came here with a whole bunch of guys, and they didn't have anything to learn. Nobody knew the heck why he was so obstinate that he's coming here. And thousands of people wrote a huge big petition that he should do it. Don't leave us alone in Europe. What are you going on? And the amazing thing is that in all the letters that he personally wrote from here to Chutz La'aretz, he doesn't say anything about the great perfection that he feels about being in Eretz Yisrael and the unbelievable self-recognition that he's got from the Kedusha. He himself doesn't write about it. In other words, he wasn't coming here looking for his own personal perfection. I mean, there were a few of the guys that were with him that were. I mean, they were into that more. I mean, they were great people. But he not. And what did he want? What did he want? Elamai. We have to say that was like a huge preparation for Ruchni Yisrael in the Avir, in the air of the world, in the air and in the whole world. Yeah, it was Mishtanem, Mitzadzeh, the Tzidim came with the Koyach and the Baal Shem Tov into Eretz Akrit. And they met up with people who didn't like it. It didn't, and the same happened to the Shloach Kodesh. But he came a generation or two before that. And he also ended up in Tiberia. And the reason is because in Tiberia there was a lot of Pinim and Sater. And so they understood a person like the Shloach Kodesh. And Mamela, this built up this whole unbelievable, and that's what the Alter Rebbe was doing out there in Rusland. Do you realize what Rusland, what it was in those days as well? It's the biggest area in the world, I think, which is called one state. Now it's several of them, never. Also some Shugoyim and Rothschild and the Chais that have made these little states and everything. They're blowing one up from time to time, etc., etc. But in those days it was a huge Medina called Russia. And it's well known that the whole Indian from the cities began in Russia. The Baal Shem Tov said that he was from Medina's Russia, and he was proud of the fact. And the Alter Rebbe held himself as a proud subject of the Tsar. This is well known. And when Napoleon came, the Alter Rebbe said he prefers the Tsar 1,000 times more than Napoleon. Yamach Shemoy V'Zichra. We're saying Kanamachim Lahari, if we would call to go into all these unbelievable details. However, suffice it to say that the Alter Rebbe's aim was to bring down this unbelievable Yofutzu Mayna Socha into the area of Russia, of Russia. And that went on with the Mittler Rebbe, and the Mittler Rebbe had unbelievable Mesiras Nefesh Dafa. This is one of the personal stories, what the Mittler Rebbe tells about his own Mesiras Nefesh. And the Rebbe did some study. But they carried out that the Rebbe had like something like about 10,000 cities once at one time in the Chutz of Lubavitch. And Lubavitch is a little winny nip of a little muddy sort of a little loch on the map. Lubavitch, a lot of mud. There's no made roads or nothing. And you got 10,000 cities in a little town like that. Just imagine that. And so, what happens with the meat is a huge hachona in the Aviho Olam and even touching the Gashmis Olam of comes along the Rebbe Marash, and he starts off a whole new manhaj. And he says, and therefore we find that the Rebbe said on several occasions that the Rebbe Marash is the Baal Shem Tov all over again. The Rebbe Marash said, as the Rebbe said about the Rebbe Marash, that he was Baal Shemski, that he was like a whole new beginning. But it's a beginning of bringing it all down, mamish, into the Matthias of the Welt. Mamish kipshute bisel, it becomes mamish poil, mamish in the Gashmias of the world, mamish kipshute in the, how do you call it, the ordinary everyday hunk of Gashmias and Chumris, which is called this world. And therefore, I was there in the year, I forget which year it was, I was there at Sukkot, and the Rebbe said in the middle of a Maimon Chassidus, on Yud Gimel Tishrei, the Rebbe used to say that was the L'Chatchila Riba, the famous principle of the Rebbe Marash. And the Rebbe said in the middle of a Maimon Chassidus, the Rebbe told a mice. That's why on the Rebbe Marash used to go out and drive every day. He used to drive Kaviochel for a drive in his coach into the forest. And the coachman had to be a goy. It wasn't a yid. It wasn't allowed to be a yid. He had to be a goy. And one day they got him shikah, and he told Tumat what went on when they went into the forest. You know the whole story. The Rebbe Marash wanted to fire him. The Rebbe Marash was tremendously angry with this goy that he went and told what he wasn't supposed to tell. It was only Barachamim that the city begged for forgiveness because it was really their fault for the poor goy. In the end, the Rebbe Marash took him back, I think. Anyway, he fired him, but he returned him or something. Because he told Tamar. So anyhow, but that's a whole big story. What the Rebbe Marash, what the Goya reported that the Rebbe Marash used to do when he was out there in the forest. Or however, surprised to say that one day the Rebbe Marash says to the Goya, "We're not going back the normal way. So don't drive back to Lubavitch that way, but go around this way." So they went around a big circle, and they went through a Goyish village. A Goyish village where, as far as I know from the story, there were no Yidden. A crowd of goyim, mamish kipshutim. And so the Rebbe Marash with these beautiful malchus, he had a very posh coat. Everything was very posh, very, very posh. And they drive down with these posh horses, the best you can get in the world. And they drive down the street of this goyish village, the main, how do you call it, the main street. And all of a sudden, all these goyim come rushing out of their houses, all of them, and they all bow down. Hishtachavur, kipshutei, pishut yadayim, raglayim. They went bow down to the Rebbe Marash's coach. The whole way down this, they all came out. Whoever saw the coach, they all bowed down. Pishut yadayim, raglayim. So they get back to Lubavitch. And one stays, somehow or another, some of the elder city were demaisa, I say that some goy told another goy, or maybe the goy opened his mouth again, I don't know what happened. It became known that this happened. So one of the chassidim came into the Rebbe Marash and said, "What's you doing?" He said, "What's this?" So the Rebbe Marash said, "What's by you the pele? What is by you the surprise?" It's written in the pasuk, Baruch tiyeh mikol ha'amim. You will be blessed from all the peoples. And the word Baruch is the shurish of the word Baruch. It's got to do with bowing down or bending of the knee. It's one with the whole of hamavrich es hagefen, to bend down the piece of the thing and plant it again into the ground. Or the word knee, berech. There's a thing that you bend. If you want to bend over, you bend your knee. That's what's called berech. And therefore, Baruch Tiyeh means that the goyim will, that's what the Rebbe Marash meant, that the goyim have to bow down to the Yidden. That's what it's meant to be. So the Chazal had these two big exclamation marks over his head, and he realized that he couldn't really say any more. That was it. And then in the year Tov Reish Koches, there's a maimah from the Rebbe Marash, which begins with that Dibur HaMaskil, Baruch Tiyeh Mikol Ha'amim. And the Rebbe Marash talks over there about, he brings down a Yerushalmi, what's written in the Yerushalmi, that if a goy gives a Yid a bracha, and wishes him good, that you have to say Omen. That the Yid has to answer Omen on the goy's bracha. So I answer Omen after the bracha v'goy. So he said, yes, because it's written Baruch Tiyeh Mikol Ha'amim, that all the peoples are going to bless you. Yeah, that's written in the Torah. It has to be that way. And you have to make an Omen. And then he explains what Omen means. With all the beauty of how Agoy Maktavrah, Omen. Plus other inyanim. Was Lefise Kuntoid. And there are many other stories about the Rebbe Marash, but that's like a beginning of a whole new system where the Goyim, the Pashtas, are all just going to become Spatir. It's had the Gilui of the Nasi and the Amiti Signone, that they're going to be Botel, Bepel Manish, El Nasi. Each comes to put him in. And then we find the Rebbe Rashab. Yeah, the next movement is take a look what happened with the Rebbe Rashab. Even though the Hemsheichim at the Chassidus of the Rebbe Rashab, there's nothing more powerful and unbelievable in the Gilu of the understanding and the Hasoga of Chassidus. But at the same time, everything took a tremendous march towards conquering what was even an enemy-stricken world around, in the sense of overtaking the world Kipshute. And that was the founding of the Yeshiva Tomchet Tamim. None of the Rebbeim founded a yeshiva for learning Siddur and Nila together. It was only the Rebbe Rashab. And he set up the Yeshiva Tomchet Tamimim, and he said the famous to the Talmidim of the Yeshiva, and apart from the famous Kuntrazim, the Kuntas Atfila and the Kuntas Umayon, the Kuntas Aveda, what they were written for, but there was the famous Sikha of the Chayalei based Dovid, that these Talmidim had to become the soldiers of the house of King David. And there's a famous Sikha, well, I mean, you're all familiar with the Sikha. It's a very famous Sikha, but the Rebbe Kotzich and that Sikha, unbelievable. He has it reprinted every now and then. Unbelievable. But the Rebbe Rashab really gets down there to think tax. And he says there's going to be people who are going to defy the Gilu Mashiach. Yeah, the Cherpu Ikveis Mashiach. That the Gilu Mashiach is on the move. There's going to be people who are going to defy it, and it's going to have to be like a fight, a struggle. And that the people who are learning in his yeshiva, they are the chayolim who are going to carry out the fight. And from then on, the Rebbe Rashab educated a whole group of people that they fought in simple inyonim in the world, not in hoiche inyonim, but mamish kosher, milchoma, nichretzes, neged the koiches of the Tumah in the Liyum Zekim Shutek. Now the Rebbe, the Tzemach Tzedek also began that. He was the big leader of the fight against the Haskalah. But the Haskalah was the Ruchnius of it. That was still in the world, even though they began fighting Begash Miseh. But that the whole Indian of communism, a whole unbelievable organized power to blot out Elikus in the world and to take over the world, that wasn't in the time of the Rebbe, the Tzemach Tzedek either. Even though these Tadreta Yidden that were called the Maskilim caused a lot of trouble. But they took over a whole world of mamish begashmias kipshute, just swamping the world. Heper Gilevelikus and beike heper ich weiß mishichecha. To root out the whole belief that the world's going anywhere. That's communism. And so that's what started the whole thing. And who broke it was the few Chayoli based out from Tomchet Tamim. They were the ones who broke it. And eventually the Friedrich Rebbe, he stepped in when the war was at the most terrible point. And that's when he took over, and he broke the whole communist Russia. You should realize that from the moment that they arrested the Friedrich Rebbe in Tov Reish Pei Zayin, in Yud Beis Tammuz, the beginning of their end already began. It took about 60, 70 years till it finished, but it finished. And the Rebbe said on many occasions that from that moment that they arrested the Rebbe, that was the beginning of their end. In other words, that the ganze koyach that was mamish begashmias, bechumias, taking over the whole world, and would have swept it into absolute disaster, was broken, bepoiled by a little sickly individual called the Friedrich Rebbe. I mean sickly in Gashmias, not Chashov and Ruch. Individual called the Friedrich Rebbe. He broke it, and not only did he break it, but he brought about the beginning of the answer to the whole thing, which is the killing of Mashiach B'Poyel. And therefore he was the first one that he said that Mashiach is coming B'Poyel Mami. The first one of the Rebbeim that actually used that expression, that right now, you didn't prepare yourselves and get ready because he's coming right now. And I heard the other night, it's amazing, I met up with somebody, that he told me that in France, it's interesting, I just had a call now from a boch in France, and he told me that over there by the Mishiachistim in France, it's mamish alive. He said there's such a bren and such a chayas over there, that's unbelievable. He said he himself can't believe it. But they mamish believe that Mashiach is here, and they're cooking, and hundreds of people are being affected. The Rebbe said that Tzorfas, it became actually for us, they were all the Riches Oinim. Where's the whole communism left? What's left of the whole communism is a few Mishigoyim over here. They're the ones that are still carrying. That's the Dover Bilti moving cloud. And these guys are all the Sridim of those communists. I don't want to mention names. But there's one of them that he's been behind the whole thing now for decades. And the so-called American pressure, what they talk about, doesn't exist. He calls up to this Mishagea him that that's not the right way. This is what he didn't want. And what did he didn't want? Communism. They want to give everything away to the Goyim. And they want to live like Goyim. And therefore you'll notice, look in all the Sikhs where the Rebbe talks about Shleimus HaOretz. Look carefully and you'll see that the Rebbe talks about Goyishkeit. First of all he attacks what he calls Goyishkeit. And then he talks about what you have to do to be careful with Shleimus HaOretz and all. And first of all he talks about Goyishkeit. Because that is the secret of it. That is the pnimius of the whole tzorah, is that there's a communistische shtick in a few of these old, unbelievable Poishe Mulchama, what they believe in the old communistische principle. And they say that the means justifies, how do you call it, the ends justify the means. Are you familiar with the famous principle of Marx? I mean, he was a Yid, or at least some people say he was. That the end justifies the means. Never people get killed. What can we help? The main thing is we've got to get where we want. You know, familiar with the fact, you guys? And that's exactly what these guys hold. Exactly, mamish lenakuda merkazi kipshuta, and that's what happened. Yeah, the Ebster brought one of them to his Rahman in the Atlant, to what was due. Rahman in the Atlant, after he'd done it for tens of years, and let hundreds and hundreds of Yidden be slaughtered on the streets. And it's still happening. So, al tiftat picha l'sota, I don't want to be, ich will nicht gehen sagen, aber das ist sicher, that Achris Teiv is not waiting for these guys either. Because they're the leftover of that one little shred of the communism that left over. Somehow another year now to give them a hop on. It's very, very hard to rule it out. Mashiach is well on the way to doing it. So anyway, suffice it to say, is that what happened not only did he break that unbelievable machine in Gashmis Oilam Kipshuta, Mamish fought it on the grounds of its own unbelievable anti-deity. He fought that on the grounds because they lived in the world, they weren't interested in Shitta. Their Indian was Pearl Mamish, outrooting humanity. But the Rebbe beat him, and then he started the whole machinery of spreading out the Afutza, Mayan Chutza, also Begashmi Yisrael, all over the place, all over, everywhere. I feel it be Iyei Hayam, the famous Diach of the Rebbe, Achman Shalpeza, the Iyei Hayam, everywhere, Metum. You got this, what people started in Gashmis to hear such a thing as a Lakuz, such a thing, our Venezuelan, well, even in Ichweistortenfurt.
The number one song in America right now is the Lubavitcher. The number one Gashmi song.
This fellow Matashawa.
Yeah, he's about
Drake. Oh, Tip Pearly will tell me that we happen to know who this fellow is. I mean, look, with all due respect, I mean, God forbid, I don't want anything bad. But, don't be super impressed. Is a mirror comes out of his that it's begun. The Friedrich Rebbe began this unbelievable machine of spreading Elkus into the Mamish, into the Matthias, Adagashmi, so Elam, Kipshuta, Poelman, everywhere. And wherever they went, the Rebbe kept saying to them, they've got to take people, and they're going to take into the moistest, even children that their parents don't know anything. Everybody said, wow, what is that? I mean, this is a Heipach HaMakubal, the Orthodox Jewry, taken to a school where you got all those kids, from parents who knows, if you know you're going to blow everything. Oh, no, you're not. What's going to happen is they're going to go home and affect their parents. But that's what happened all over the world. And so they got all these mishpachas that they came into Lubavitch through the first shluchim that went out. And now they today are helping the shluchim. If it weren't for them, we wouldn't be sitting around this table now peering at this beautiful camera here. If not for them. Oh, I never began. And then they came along without the whole Arigas, the Rebbe Melech Moshiach. He stepped into the thing when it already had began this unbelievable spread. And the Rebbe said, okay, now we go, and it's just never known any end. Spread and spread and spread. And it's got to do darky with the Yisatzmas, with the Eilam Agashmi Kipshutoi. And so you might say, what's it got to do with it? So there's a famous piece of the Rebbe, the Rashab in the Ayin Beis. It's very, very brief. I just mentioned a very bekitza, very, very briefly, in the Hemshech of Pesach of Matzasur in Tofresh Ayin Hay. In the Hemshech from Ayin Beis, the Rebbe Rashab says an amazing thing. And he says that the Osid Lovei, the Gilui of the Osid Lovei will be Dafki Milamata Lamayla. It will be from below above. So then he asks himself the question, it's going to be Milmata Lamayla, it's going to be Milmayla Lamata Lacha, it's going to be the Gilui Atzma Seit Seif Lamata. So how can you say that's Milmata Lamayla? And if you're going to say that we're preparing that by our Avodah, and what sort of error does our Avodah have with Atzma Seit Seif, Sof, it's going to be Milmayla. So the Rebbe says, hey, never to say that it'll be Bika Milmayla, or nonetheless, he tells us it's going to be Milmata Lamayla. Was it a pshat? So he said that normally speaking, if we go Milmayla Lamata, then what happens is that there's two possibilities. Either that the matter becomes so strong that it takes what you give Milmayla and it's milim on it and leaves everything more or less as it is, that's what we call Olam Kemin Hogi, no yeg. And that's what's called the Al-Pi Kabbalah, the Shiluv Havaya Ba'adne. The Ik is the Shem Adne and the Havaya is there, but he's Behelim. And then there's another possibility of Shiluv Adne Ba'havaya, that everything goes up, and it's Misala, and there's no Matthias Olam anymore. The Ik is the Matthias Menelakus. And the world loses its Matthias altogether. So the Rebbe Hashem says, Nish dosi de Kavana, Nish dosi de Kavana. The ultimate Kavana is that the Shem Adne should be Magabir himself, but he should become a Kli to the Atzma. Not that he should be Ma'alim on the Atzmas, and therefore it looks as if the world's a Matthias, but the world will be a Matthias Mamish. The Teuge of a Matthias will be there, will be a world Mamish with the constant brand, over that Gufa will be Megala Atzmas. In other words, and the use of the word, the expression, She'elakus Yitzatzim, She'etzem Elakus Yitzatzim Im Matthias Oilam. Several times use that expression. It will become one thing with the Matthias of the world. And that will be the Gilui of Liosid. In other words, at Liosid, the Etzem Oilam Agashmi and Atzmas Ein Seif are going to be inseparable. It's not that the world will have to go up and become Batil completely by Matthias. B'Matthias Klal. I'll deal with the Alter Rebbe says in Perek Gimel over there, Sha'ar Yichud, that Elo Nitner Reshus Li'ayin, that if we would see the Emes, K'moshe, then we wouldn't see the Gashmius Ha'olam. But the Middle Rebbe says in Amayim that that's how it is now, but Liyosid, you will see the Gashmius Ha'olam. That the Gashmius Ha'olam will take a certain takeoff, and after it became, there'll be the Gilui from Atzmas. In other words, that the Oilam HaGashmi will be a Kli for Gilui ain't safe Mami. And therefore, says the Rebbe Rashab, therefore he's like called Milmatala Maila, even though the Emes it's Milmatala, it's a Gilui Atzma. Oh, it's called Milmatala Maila because the Mata will be a Kli. Yesh Lema does it in from Pearl Mamish. And that goes in Slavim. It went in Slavim. The Baal Shem Tov. And Menli Vitebse, he did it in Eretz as well. And Baruch Hashem that he did. Because who knows what these rogues would have got up to were not here. And Baruch Hashem, it's come down gradually. But he wasn't shy to get it. They didn't have any Gashmius Beklal. They weren't Beklal in the God. But they were bringing it down. They were bringing it into the world. They were being Mekala, the whole thing. And they were the Alter Rebbe Nochmer. And the Rabbeim, with the Yutas Kislev, with the Yafutza, Mayan Selcha Davki in Medina's Russia, what they're going to do is, what they're going to Riches Ha'inyan of a Poel Mamish. Well, that's a new idea. Poel Mamish of the Pshat, it becomes Misatzeim, and that the Etzem Inyan of the Gashmi, so Elam itself is Megala, it's a Kli, and it's Megala ain't it, Mam. And therefore, at the early part of the time when I was working here in the yeshiva, there was a whole business with Tainam Abacha. He wanted to make his kafia, and he was into all sorts of things of this nature, and I do this, and I was worried, I was concerned, and it wasn't really my Talmud. But in those days, it wasn't like nowadays. Nowadays, they've been somehow or another, for some reason, they've been clear to separate us. We're like a separate, sort of a Matthias. Well, in those days, we were all mixed together with that we used to sleep in rooms with the outside. But we didn't have a special, dormitory or to me or something they got to do it. So you went to another word. So I used to have connections also with the Bocher from the Zal. Nowadays, none of them would dare even, step in my Daladamas. But in those days, we used to schmooze together. So I was concerned about this Bocher, I was worried about it. So in the end, the whole thing, somebody wrote to the Rebbe, and I asked the Rebbe, what is this coffee nowadays? For you say, so the Rebbe said that it's coffee nowadays, and it's a whole arichas of, I'm just giving the nakuda. The Rebbe said, davki to eat all the macholi which is known, it's good for the body, over to eat as if you eat, and to be mamshik, the koyach hanafshi, and the etzem hanefesh, into the achila, as a lesson here. And then there were letters later when the Rebbe said, it's in the Igros Kodesh, I think also, they talk about it occasionally, that even if it's kafir means you eat, but you eat with Gilui Elokus. Amamela, it follows that a certain macholim that your nefesh tells you that you don't need to eat that, the whole life flavors, because your body doesn't really need it. But what you need, then you have to eat dafki lecha chayel eslachmu, besimcha eslachmelcha. Well, the whole big idea was a Givenian. It was a whole sort of a thing. I ain't kind of making laharik with it. And so now we see that the Indian is the davki in the Matthias of the world. And that was one of the big things that the Baal Shem Tov changed. He said, no more fasting. All right, fast. No more. And one of the times the Baal Shem Tov gave was that you have to be b'simcha the whole time. B'simcha b'tov levo. And if you're fasting, you can't be b'simcha. They stay there. No matter how much. you've got the highest kavanas in the union of the tiny. This is maneer van de mens. He's nicht bezield. It's much more worth that he have a bit of food in his tummy and his blood is coming from the food and not from some high kavana in the moichin. It's much better to be that way and he'd be besimcha. I'd say that's gesagt to Malchevta. And this whole sikh of the Rebbe Melech Mashiach happened to build it. So the president builds Yevorah Chaim Tev there, which is the Admor rebuilt. There's a whole thing where he had with the Rebbe about Simcha. The Rebbe said, no, you got it wrong. It's from the Baal Shem Tov on, it's mud sign als besimcha, no besimcha, and therefore the shlilus hagashmi is not a inen, it has to be tafke the gashmi, and in them is my mamshich halakus and my miller, the simcha nimmt sich zusammen mit der Metzias Oilem, a whole sikh of the Rebbe, to the Welt. It's a whole new shutras, it's a whole new inyan, adapted to the Metzias of the world, and in them we have to be megala the hechste inyanim, or it has to be in a way that Poshe Kipshutei, that the world is okay for Gashmis. You got to have a gesund to and you got to feel that you have a little bit of something in your system which will give you, and dot gufa, you use betachlis kedusha of dafki b'kavod simcha. And therefore, everything's in this parsha. At the beginning of this week's parsha, in parsha tazria, there's a famous mimer. Seish tosis v'soger la'akora b'kibbutz paner v'l'seicha b'simcha. And the Alter Rebbe is masber with the whole inyan for simcha. And he writes over there that Cholila, if you're not besimcha, there can be shoyra dinim chas v'sholem. And he says, pink verkehrt, that if you're besimcha, I feel you're not beseder, and there's some din chas v'sholem, chas Cholila, there's a din alechem min hashamayim. Over you megala the inyan from simcha, the misalkim, they take away the whole din. And he gives a whole marshal after all. And he said that the Melech, goes out onto the country, a whistle breaks, and is to freedom with the country. He sees that all the citizens are all happy that he's their king, and they're happy with him, even though maybe some of their behavior hasn't been perfect. And he says, oh, if I say, let's forget all my breaks, now we'll deal with them in the best possible way. We'll fix it up in such a way that they'll have what to be happy about the pasta. It's a mashal in the Maya from the Alter Rebbe. Was kein tier long bepastas. Everybody should be with simcha for good reason. Nicht mitzad is boninus in Perikof of Tana, even though the Alter Rebbe Yora is doing, that's also part of Tana. And the fire does it in a kuta. And therefore, just by way of connecting it with the whole, we began Odom. There's a famous mimer in Lakota Torah, also a little short mimer where the Alter Rebbe says, and that's the whole inyan of this week's parsha we could suggest. Is that Dafki, the inyan of the Torah, is that all things that are there in Ruchnius, ultimately they have to come down into the Matzias of the Olam, and that's the immediate inyan from Odom. The emes inyan from Odom is when all of his inyanim, even what he hasn't quite finished, that expresses itself in the physical world. And there he brings from the Rambam and from the Ramaz and from some of the other great Makom, but he starts off with the Rambam. And the Alter Rebbe brings that Davki, the Odom is the Madrega, like we began with it, the Odom is the Madrega Ki Shleimo, and Ki Amitius, Shebekola Madregas. And he even brings out how that Moshe Rabbeinu wasn't quite, and then he got a kasha on the Alter Rebbe himself. Is mafalful b'dov. He comes in, Moshe Rabbeinu, he was lacking at the time. Ish Elokim was up Zish, who the Odom. He said, the inyan from Odom. He says that Davki, somebody that B'Shleim is Baruch Niyaz. Then if he's got a little fault, that'll show up in Gashmis Begufa. In fact, that's a good sign. It's a sign that he's working in the right way. And therefore he says, all the inyan, the goyim is an emes and a inyan shebekidusha. And he brings it to the goyim, oirois elyoinim she'oi lo matzim es mekaymo. Kill the place from his eye. And then in the next moment, the Alter Rebbe is mad, the goyim come from Moichem Da'im, and they come from Bina. And he said, oh, the Bina's got Oichem Atayim. Now you have to have also Chochmah. If you just rely on a soga, then those take eventually, maybe they can be very delicate. Inyon, but that's another inyon I say in Kalmah. Laharik to say, oh, the Nakuda is what comes out is that what higher you are, the more it comes out in, it's Mishgashim, in the Gash, it's Misachim mit the Metzias Oilo. And that's the union from Pearl Mami. And therefore we find that there are many inyonim when I get to the Korbanis, but the great Mephoshim also must be exactly the same thing. Was it a mensch bringing a Korban? Was it a Tasha Korban? A Korban is a Dover Kashmir. What's it got to do with these inyonim? Until the Kashin citizens that nowadays we don't have the base of Mikdash, L'chora, our Korbanis, which are Vedas at Tfilah higher, because they're Ruchnier. The inyan from Tfilah is Be'ika and Aveda Ruchnier. An Aliyah, Achrei Aliyah in Ruchnier. The L'chora, that's unbelievably higher than the Hakrovas HaKorbanis, Behemoth Kashmir, Al Gaber Mizbeah. So the El Torah writes in L'kut Ter and Pasha Pinchas, he writes a Ter Tzatem Kasha. And he says, Nishtemet. He said, the immediate shleimus of the world is that when in the Gashmius Oilam, we see that the next thing on him, Mizgashim and Misatzim, with a Mitzizim, we bring up Behemoth Gashmius, and his in is Oila, Ba'ei Shel Maila Alam Mizbeah, that's higher than all the Ruchnis that you can reach. I feel a business is never seen Yechida. I state to him, and does it have shot, Odom Ki Yakri. A mensch was a shleim, was in Ruchnis, bei ihm kommt es auf in Gashmius. Und es Misatze mit dem Metzias, mit die Ebene inne von dem Messias Oilo. Das ist der Pshat, what the Rebbe said, ich mein aber bepeul Mami. And therefore I just spoke to this boy, Mom said about half an hour before I came down here to this year. This boy called me up. You guys don't know, he was here about 2 years ago in this year. Now he's in his office and he says, Rav Gavni, he said, where the Meshachisten? I said, sprint, the fire. He said, slip. He said, you can feel the river. He said, you're with it. I stood up there. He said, Mom, ich bin applied. And that's it in Nakuda. The Nakuda is that the world so fast. I mean, the world was beating. I never been there. I was in South for a few hours. But I went out to Brunmore. I went out to the yeshiva, the Levitz in the yeshiva. I met the old Mashpira of Nisan Nemanov. And the amazing thing is that he said one of that family is in the place where he is supposed to you know. Well, the Nemanovs are quite a big family now in South. It's one of the Einikl from Rav Nisan is out in this place where he is. Yeah. And he's a Meshachet. So well, it's Tutzichov, you understand the Inyonim. They're coming into the Metzias Ha'olam. Has anybody's ever seen Tzorfat? That's the most Magushim-dike place that was ever created. It does. It's the most Magushim-dike place. That's Yashmi's. And here you got this other person creeping into the Metzias, into the Yashmi's Tzorfat. Mitzasim from Metzias Ha'olam. That's what the glance of my Talmud, and he said to him, Ich mein aber b'poel mami. Moshiach is a from poel mami. So we've had enough. All the hachonis have already been done. It's all been achieved. Everything is now, it's been misatzim and Metzias Ha'olam. And the ad mosai is a tzayker noiroa ad pnimis v'atzmius leiv hashamayim ad mosai. Be'ez Hashem, take it from here, from Pasha Tazria mitsora, which seems to talk about these funny negative looking things. It's got to do with the inyan from these atzmas. Amadregi shabaruknis, mid the inyan from Gashmias. Ha'elam, kipshutai. Amam is taken with me out, we should see all of the inyanim from Melech HaMashiach, and the Orach Chaim is marich, a huge arichas. And again, in reference to the Pasha Matzvira, he also goes to town. He says the two tzipoirim, the two birds, the two Mashiach, one is Mashiach ben Yosef, the other Mashiach ben David, and the water is this and something else is this, and it's all Mashiach. I can't see it in the Orach Chaim HaKodesh. And he brings down the Arizal, which is a bit unusual for him. He quotes the Arizal, Kisvi Arizal, Ergan, Arizal, and this. Well, it's well known that Rabbeinu Chaim Vital writes that, in his opinion, his Rebbe, the Arizal, was Mashiach ben Yosef. That's why he died young. He to do it. Young Tzarich. If Mashiach ben Yosef, Baruch Hashem, we've already had, not Baruch Hashem because he passed away early in life, whatever. And so now we got Mashiach ben David, and take you from here, Mamish, now. And so between now, much is what it says, between now and Shabbos, a lot of time.
How about now and Marv?
Huh?
How about between now and Marv?
Yeah, I'm ready for it. Between now and Marv, there's in Matis is a Kohen. And I spoke just before I came to another old town of mine in Leeds, in England. Well, he's a Kohen also. So I said to him, listen, man, are you preparing some protection for us? In the base of meetings? And he said, oh, yours. He said, I'll look after you guys, don't worry. He said, I'll look after you. So we got him. We got Matches, we got a few other guys. They'll look after the Kohen and we'll make sure that we're all right. Well, what do we have to bring? Korbanos, to the Shens. We'll have protection and everything, and we got the Rebbe. What could we want better? Huh? Yeah, that the Kohen will become Leviim, or rather that the Leviim shall also in Perek Nun, from Tanya. It's that stuff of Nabir, but it's not trace of the fact that the Kohen will continue to serve. And the Rebbe said to many Kohen, they'll be zeichet to serve in the base of meeting. What we suggest is, and the Rebbe writes it in one of the Ha'oras, that the Shomus of the Kohen, which we serving in the base of meetings, that there will be oil also into the Madrega Delavim, that there will also be pearl in themselves, bake the Madrega ceremony.
It says that there will be known with the Milo of Buddhists.
Huh? That's the union from the Gura, the union from the Stalkers. That's the union from the Levim, that will also be Niklal in the Vedas HaKoyan. Because the union and the Korbanos Liossi, they're going to be different. They're going to be in a different way from what they are. It's not very hate for all of us. So, how do they say, wir sein nicht wie, whichever way it will be, we should be there to take him from Yad. And if Mantis has to change his gear a little bit and become a bit of a Levi or whatever, he'll be ready for that also. Okay, so have a good night, and Be'ez Hashem, hopefully before Mar. We should be a meeting in our ear. Emerson music of what is. The Heina Beetleboy Mitzad Mekoiro, Hamato, Shazowinian Das Eliain, Ein on a Yodim cloud. In other words, the meeting of Das Eliain is how the Avish sees everything. That's what it's written in those memoirs. That the Emerson Beetle, the Chias Amazing will be the way the Avish sees it. His understanding of Kavioho. That's in the oil. The oil, mitzad, the trueness of the oil. What it's on the one hand dog, and it's also marish, mekoirei mamish. Therefore, it kilo gives over, or that bittel which is only mitzad the moyer himself, only mitzidei, how he sees the bittel. And therefore, that's the immediate sin from das eliyain. And therefore, we can never really be masik that afilu b'derech ha-shorem. So that was it, the Rebbe, v'ayinu sha'anivroi mitzad atzmom, purely the way they are, einu masigim es adeho elyeina, eich shaha kur ha'invo. Yeah, but by definition, it's konadai. And even, it's not that the oil is masiget. No, the oil, mitzad it's dveik, is kilo is like as we said before, it's like a medium which just gives it over of it, what the oil is masiget. In other words, yeah, the whole, because, I mean, the meat is eating for Noyer, how it is, I'll skill it, is anyway, not the concept of a soga cloud, it's just a uniform, a medium, like we said, even how it comes klapeno, it's only just a uniform beetle the gamre. And the fact, mitzad that a meat is eating from beetle, it kilo has in itself, like a reflection of how the Abster sees of it. Einoid, mamish, even from Ayin Vo, Efes, and that's why he says Ayin Vo Efes, because the Amitisinian is Deimalacha, as we pointed out, that's even higher than the Musik of Efes. Oh, so now it's very common in this whole Emshech. Now we could go back the other way. You can ask the Shai what it's not Mavur in Kama Drushich Siddhas. What we've learned, some of them I'm sure, all of us, that you can be masbianing, you also say as beirim. Why you have to say that the world is ein worthless? That if you understand that the Eivster, and you got some musik in Seiva, then you come to the conclusion that the whole world is bottled, but that's some people, not mitzad poshet chesbenes as we'll soon see in Das Tate, or you can be masik mitzad a meteor somewhere, everything is bottled. And the Chora makes say, oh yeah, that makes sense. No world, ain't no even vade. That avita trush mit your masbud, ganz verstandig. I mean, the my mind from Mem Gimel, the famous Umnaum and all those, they're not masbud. Be'emes say no vade, and the Moscow Yadaita, mit oid trushim, and the Yadaitas in Lakute Torah, and plenty of my mind, the masbud. I said the world is so. Ein Matthias, everybody's everybody's mafalful and said, that's it. So the Rebbe said, okay, what do you mean by saying that nobody's mashing the Emes Adaya? And sure they are. We talk about it a lot. Hima yesh gam ze yuchel yesh musad beseichel. Eche mit zadat to say they say, elemus vistauschelus, bebrinus Matthias klar. I mean, we just try to say, that the oil's got that mitzad it's devekas and argosha, but we can't possibly have that. How can we come and visit us? It's absolutely mushal mitano. So the Rebbe says, what? Shezein is born as the vaya echad. In the Hemshech over there from Ranat, in the famous Maimon. From the Herchol too, the others say, mitzad avaya echad. Ein Matthias Oilemets. Mamish the Emes a Bittel. Verkehrt, it's an Emes in the Bittel from Yochid. Now we say it in the form of echad. Lahadgish is a Bittel, and even though they come about, none of us are in the form of Bittel. Mitzad ein Oilemavati Mamish. But it's a bigger kiddush than to say they never started Beklau. So I said, at the Chayva say, he said, Zehu rak ha'asoga levad. In other words, we've been talking about asoga, but we're not really, it's amazing how you sort of, the Rebbe say, well, asoga is not really shayach. Oh, yes, it is. He said, Shia, b'derech hanocha b'moichoi, u'beherge sho'inyan, u'mikol shchen shiyah ha'bitl b'eivim kach. Ain't zeh v'niroyim mikach. They don't have mikoyach atman. In other words, mashma that some way or another we might be able to give them, but mikoyach atman need. So says the Rebbe, you think the whole time that I've been saying, ein nevroim masigim ve'einahem yuidim ve'fil matiyas v'chuli. He said, you think I mean purely hasoga? We don't mean purely hasoga. Purely hasoga means taking concepts, concepts that make sense. In the Klale Asoga, you can be masber anybody. And therefore, those Maimonim and those Drushim, there must be you. The Klale how do you call it, Heichachas, why you have to say that? Like Avi Demeter saying, I mean, so Tova Muna, the Avish is toch ein say for the Pshitas, how can all the Nevroim open up some tears like Avi here? So the Rebbe said, ain't nothing. But he said, I'm sorry, sister, that's not what we mean, that you're massing something. It isn't and isn't. He said, the whole time we've been saying in the Maimon, the Roim are not really massing, and they don't really have a idea, they don't really have a full idea of some matzah. He said, we mean by that, here we see the amazing, sort of like Musa that there is, and I once gave over Rav Nochem that he said that in every few lines of all the big Haskalah Dika Maimon, you can always chap. There's a certain sort of a play, it comes over even deep inside all the tifstas scholar. All of a sudden you hear the zets, which makes you realize that you're going to get cracking on yourself. It didn't start anyway yet. In the second chapter, I had to come and looked up something last night. In the second chapter, the Iron Base, very based. But over there, the Rebbe says, the nefshel akish from Ayidin is, he said, therefore, tzodik lezoya, in the midst of a whole big passage over there, you have to be very careful that since everything of the nefshel akish is really elokus, it's an ayin elokit, there's a nefshel akish, and tzodik lezoya, but mea mashkiyim, koichesov, shalom, and the man says, be very careful what he put, because whatever you put yourself into, and you're a yid, then you're putting an nefshel akish in there. So he says you have to be very careful where you put your koiches. Because with all the things that there's no such things that do say it, aber so close to the hikah, like you're putting in the whole koich. And the Satan, when you look up in the second chapter, the whole back of it, it knocks you for a sixer. You learn that it's a huge sort of muscle. So wow, wait a minute, I didn't think of that. So you got to be very careful where you put yourself, because you put your guns Elakus, in that inning, because that's what you are. So the same thing here. So it wasn't a fact that you're massing something. It wasn't a fact that you tried to say that you have a yediyah v'zeh, or you're in that inyan, or what it takes. You should have rishiyah b'derach hanocha b'moicha. It's just a coupling the zach. It has to have a klita in your moyach, hanocha. And he said, beherrgeshoin, it's also going to go down to the heart, that your mom should feel and you live with them, sir. And he said, how much more so that it should really be like that? In other words, whatever you understand, that's the way it's supposed to be. Well, if you learn about beetle, you've got to be bottle. The whole teaching of beetle is to make you bottle. So you learn all about this beetle. Oh, yes. You think you're going to be mamish in that, or even a beetle. So that, I'm not sure if you're ever going to make it on your own. That's what I mean that you're not mastering. A beetle, a coach can't see a beetle way because that you should really live that way. That's what I mean. That they can feel and they can bring into heritage and they can bring into their own beetle. Mamish, on a day to day, even who beginners das tachtoin, who beginners metzias. Huh? Something is there. In other words, if we want you to live with Elikus the way you are, and we want you to have hanochas, and we want you to have kochs, and we want you to really be bottled, we've got to give you a little bit. We have to give you a little bit of play. We've got to listen here. You're a little bit of a Matthias. We've got to talk to you a little bit that way. Can't just talk to a mensch, I'm sorry, but you're just not there. Forget it. Now let's start talking. I was not there, Kula kamech lo yachashiv mamish be'etzim v'fnim. The Chayvazay was trained. Either I'm up there or I'm not. So there is, look, I'm terribly sorry, but you're not really. That happens to be the emes. Those are the day Amitias, and you can even be mochiach that, with the swatter of are you really in it? Are you really that? But he said, what you are is that you're a Matthias. Where did I come from? He brought me about, and he keeps me going. That's got to be there, and that's there the whole time. He said, for who well, that's a key which comes, be slabshes, and even what it's there, bekiru in the nivroim. Shemahave es ha'ilamas umachaya ya oisom. Shebezeh yochol is hasogas nivroim. He said, in that there can be the hasogas nivroim. V'hasoga hu mei ha-nivroim atzmon. You might say, well, how do I get a hasoga? Hasoga is called up sahoicha madrega. So, to a certain extent, you don't have to look all that terribly far. In other words, you're complaining about the fact that you're a nivra. You're not complaining, but you're tiny that you're a nivra. If we've got to talk to you, and we've got to give it to you in a zah, even